Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the First Strike Podcast. I'm your host, and I go by the Marathon Don. On this week's episode, we got to talk about UFC London this past weekend. Sean Brady handing Leon Edwards his first defeat by finish. And I got to be honest with you folks. I love you, and I'm so grateful for all the fans and all the audience that tune in for the First Strike Podcast and really have helped me become the fastest growing combat sports podcast in the world. And I appreciate each and every one of you. We definitely got to celebrate because we just hit 5,000 subscribers in rapid pace in less than 2 months since we launched. So that's really, really cool. And we definitely going to celebrate that. But I never want to be the type of analyst or the type of podcast that bashes the fighters. I have such a deep admiration for UFC fighters, the level of athleticism, the level of commitment, discipline that it takes to be a UFC fighter. I mean, just think about what they sacrifice, and to reach the pinnacle of the sport and become champion like Leon Edwards did. I have all the respect in the world for these athletes. So I don't want to be the type of guy that comes in, and I don't want my audience and you guys to think that I'm just coming every episode. I'm going to be, heavily criticizing fighters or come off as hating or really harshly criticizing these guys. But the reality of the situation is when someone does something dumb in a fight, we have to talk about it, and we have to be honest with ourselves. And this past weekend at UFC London, in my opinion, Leon Edwards did one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen in combat sports history. Like, the type of thing that he did in his fight against Sean Brady had me questioning his fight IQ. Like, it had to be one of the dumbest things. So for those that missed it, this past weekend in the main event of UFC London, Leon Edwards took on Sean Brady, and Sean Brady, currently, he has to be the second best grappler in the welterweight division, second only to the champion. And going up against a grappler, you want to avoid grappling like the plague. And I felt like the first round was a little bit competitive. I really, even prior to the fight, I didn't post a prediction video, but I was going for Leon Edwards, and I thought he was going to be able to keep the range and pick him apart from a distance. I felt like he was going to pick up. I keep saying pick up. I felt like he was going to pick him apart from a distance. I felt like he was gonna work the outside, work the angles, and just pick him apart. I felt like he has way better stand up, way better striking, more diverse arsenal in terms of striking than Sean Brady. And I felt like Sean Brady only had one path of victory, where someone like Leon, he had multiple paths of victory. I felt like he could have pressured and eventually get that TKO win. He could have got a decision win. He could have tried to out cardio him, use his defensive wrestling. What I didn't predict was Leon Edwards going for a takedown against the second best grappler in the world in the welterweight division. That has to be the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Doesn't make sense. Leon Edwards, we need answers. Like, whose strategy was that? Like, if your coach told you to go for a takedown against the second best grappler in the division, and your skill set, you are master of striking and offensive and defensive striking, like, something has to give, and you got to fire that coach. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, that coach cannot remain part of your camp if he told you to go for a takedown in the third round. The first round was competitive. The second round, honestly, Sean Brady dominated Leon Edwards in the grappling department. Like, the way he was able to chain wrestle and really keep him down and just control most of the exchanges. Sean Brady took round two. Round one, I kind of felt like Leon Edwards, he was getting the better of him in the striking. And I'm not sure if it was because he was hesitant or he was fearing the takedown. Sean Brady did pop him a few times in the first two rounds. But entering round three, I honestly felt that it was 1-1. And I kind of felt like after being dominated and controlled for the majority of round two, the last thing Leon Edwards would want to do is grapple. And for some reason that I cannot explain, and I hope that Leon Edwards, if you ever see this, or if you do interviews, they ask you about it and you explain this, he goes for a takedown. He shoots for a takedown against the second best wrestler in the welterweight division. Folks, make it make sense. Like, I don't get it. It's like if I'm going up against Mike Tyson in an MMA fight and I choose to strike with him, like, I got nobody to blame but myself if I get knocked out. Like, if I'm going up against Mike Tyson and I know that his strongest suit is striking, you best believe I'm going at his groin, I'm going at his feet, and I'm smothering him for a takedown. Like, I don't care what nobody says. If I'm with Mike Tyson in an MMA cage, MMA rule format, I'm diving for that takedown immediately. And if I can't get it, I'm diving again. I'm staying on the floor. Like, I'm gonna be, scooting on my behind, just trying to get that takedown, or at least clinch. So for Leon Edwards to go against a takedown, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And I don't know, like, to me, it looked like he mentally quit. Like, Sean Brady mentally broke Leon Edwards because he shot for a takedown. Like, unless your coach told you that, like, that coach, you should grab him and just slap him across the head, because that doesn't make sense. And if it wasn't a coach that told him to do it, then someone should grab Leon Edwards and just right across the head, like, hey, wake up, buddy. Why are you going for a takedown? That doesn't make sense. So he goes for the takedown, and obviously it doesn't work out. Sean Brady quickly defends that with a beautiful sprawl and controls him, and eventually submits him with a beautiful one-arm guillotine, which was it was a beautiful, it was a work of art. And shout out to the announcers. I believe it was Felder that called it, because I didn't really see it coming. For some reason, I kind of felt like Leon Edwards might be able to defend it, and he called it right away. He said, once he locks this in, that's his go-to move. Leon Edwards is finished. And Leon Edwards tapped in his hometown. So shout out Sean Brady. You did it, my friend. You represented for the East Coast. I'm so proud of you, man. And where does that put him? He's definitely in the upper. He was already in the upper echelons of the division, but he got to be at least, if not the number one contender, at least the number two fighter in the division after finishing Leon Edwards for the first time in his career. No one else has ever finished Leon Edwards. To do it like that, I mean, that's very, very impressive. You got to give the man his flowers. And I just think that where do they go from here? I really got to question the IQ of Leon Edwards. I mean, historically, he's always been a decision fighter. He was someone that typically was okay coasting, point fighting. He wasn't really finishing his opponents, but then he finished Usman, and he became, like, he transcended. He became a superstar, because prior to that finish, to me, he was a boring fighter. He wasn't someone that the fans were clamoring to see. Like, he wasn't main event material. But after finishing Usman, becoming champion the way he did, like, and then beating Usman again in the rematch, like, you couldn't ignore him, and you couldn't do anything but give that man credit. Leon Edwards earned his spot the hard way, but it seems like there's definitely something off. I have no idea what it was. I don't understand how you would grapple, how you would initiate a takedown against Sean Brady. Where he goes from here, I think that this really puts him in a very interesting position, because he already fought Usman 3 times. So that would have been a really good matchup if he hadn't just, fought him for 3 times. And, and he suffered the first loss of his career. He lost a dominant one-sided loss against a champion. So this puts him in a very interesting position. I think when I look at the welterweight division, someone that makes sense for him, maybe like a Ian Gary. Why not? Both of these guys are strikers, both coming off losses. Ian Gary just suffering the first loss of his career. Leon Edwards getting finished for the first time of his career. And that fight, that there's not going to be many grappling exchanges. So that might actually favor Leon Edwards. So I would like to see him take some time off, regroup, go back to the drawing board. And I think someone like Ian Gary is an excellent fight. Is another popular fighter that always comes to fight, coming off a loss. I think that's a fight to make. In terms of Sean Brady, I think Sean Brady is also in a very interesting position. And the reason I say that is because he also lost, and he got finished. His only loss in the UFC, actually in his professional career, is to the champion. And in that fight, he got finished. So I think that this puts him in a very difficult position, because I do think that he's going to need a few more victories to actually fight for the title. And right now, the champion is booked to fight JDM. So Sean Brady, where does he go from here? I think, honestly, he might just want to maybe sit back a little bit and see how the division plays out. Like, he just finished a champion. I don't think he should fight like a Usman. Usman doesn't have the most impressive track record at welterweight. And the boogeyman of the division, I mean, Shakhmatov, I don't want to mispronounce his name. But the boogeyman of the division, I don't think stylistically that's going to be a good matchup for Sean Brady. And coming off the biggest win of his career, I think he should just sit back a little bit, wait to see what happens in the championship fight. Because if JDM defeats the champion and becomes welterweight champion, I think that puts Sean Brady in a good position to fight for the title. And I think that Shamkov. I don't want to mispronounce his name because I'm very horrible with certain names. But I think Shamkov is the boogeyman of the division. I think he's in line to fight for the championship next, regardless of what happens between Bilal and Madalena. I think that Shamkov is going to fight for the title next. But do they do Sean Brady and Shamkov in the interim? I don't know. I think that's a very risky matchup for Sean Brady, but he does need another high-profile win, in my opinion, to fight for the title if the champion is Bilal. If JDM upsets the champion, I could see a scenario where Sean Brady gets, catapults himself to a title shot just off this impressive victory. So I definitely think that is exciting times in the welterweight division. I think there's a lot of interesting moving parts right now. I don't think that Sean Brady is next for the champion, but I think that he puts himself in a very, very good position right behind Shamkov in the rankings. So overall, Leon Edwards, no disrespect, love you, love your fights, but that wasn't the best performance. And Sean Brady, all credit to you in the world, my friend. You pulled it off, and you went to Leon's Edward hometown and finished the former champion in very impressive fashion. So congratulations, sir. You deserve all the credit in the world. And in the co-main event, I mean, there were a few other notable highlights in UFC London. Kevin Holland defeating Gunnar Nelson by decision. I think this is exactly what Kevin Holland needed. He needed a big profile win. I honestly thought that Gunnar Nelson was going to take him down and submit him. I didn't think that Kevin Holland was going to be able to survive the submissions the way he did. So that was very, very impressive. I feel like Kevin Holland, coming off his last performance where he got finished by submission in the first round, he needed this. He needed a nice high-profile victory against a game and name opponent. Granted, Gunnar Nelson hasn't been the most active fighter, but he's a very popular fighter with a very built-in fan base, an excellent record. So just to be able to decision him, I think it puts him in a very good position. Now that he's back at welterweight, I think this is the right weight class for him. He's not going to be at middleweight, getting outsized by the bigger guys at middleweight. So where does he go from here? When I think about welterweight, I'm not really sure. I don't think that, he's fought a lot of the welterweight guys before. Like, he's fought individuals like Thompson, Wonderboy. Where does he go from here? I'm not really sure. I think that he should definitely stay active and definitely try to chain some wins together. And then for someone like Gunnar Nelson, it's the same thing. I think the key is activity, right? Gunnar Nelson is a guy that fights probably once a year. I mean, when was the last time you remember seeing him fight? So I think that for both guys, they should go back to the drawing board, but try to fight within the next 6 months. Like, don't take too much time off. For Gunnar Nelson, it's about reestablishing yourself, and for Kevin Holland, it's about using this momentum coming off this high-profile victory and going forward. Besides that, we did have the retirement of Molly, which was someone that to me was like a brawler. I know she had some submission wins, but it wasn't someone that I was very impressed with overall throughout her career. But congratulations on your retirement. Unfortunately, she couldn't get the win, and it is what it is, and that's what happens. I think that sometimes when you are in a position where you're giving your best, and the reality is that you're not winning, it's better to know when to call it quits, because MMA is the type of sport that's going to force you out. Like, if you don't call it quit on your own terms, it's going to force you out, and that's going to come in a very nasty way. You're going to start getting knocked out, you're going to start getting submitted, and you could take lifelong damage if you don't retire at the right time. So I think for her, it makes sense to retire now. She wasn't someone, in my opinion, that was going to become champion or crack the top 5 of the division either way. So I think having a sense of awareness to say, hey, you know what? Let me just fall back on my own terms. I think that's pretty smart. In terms of the robbery of the night, I think Ian Blakovic, the former champion John Blakovic. Once again, I'm horrible with names, so pardon me, guys. I promise I'm going to be working on the names to get everything everything correct when I pronounce these names. But I think Ian, I think he got robbed, man. I think he fought Carlos Ober, I believe that's his name, and I think that he dominated the fight. I felt like he controlled the fight. I think he was backing up Carlos the entire fight. I kind of felt Carlos like, yeah, he did a little good with the leg kicks, and he was able to work a little bit of the distance. But I felt like John Blachowicz, he deserved to win the fight, man. I would have loved to see him engage in the grappling a little bit more, and I think that might have been like his detriment. I do felt like he had the stronger grappling base, so I was surprised that he actually didn't initiate more takedowns. I felt like that was his best path to victory, but I was surprised at how he was able to dictate the pace. I felt like he was an aggressor most of the time. I felt like Carlos was just working the outside and landing a few kicks here and there. He did land a few notable punches, but for the most part, I felt the more signature strike, the more impactful punches of the fight was done by John, the former champion. So to me, it's a big upset. I know that a lot of the odds makers, they actually had Carlos as the favorite, but to defeat a former champion, I mean, that's very, very impressive. Where does he go from here? I think someone like John, I mean, let's see, there's a few paths. I mean, he's a former champion. He's a very popular fighter. He has a very exciting style. So I think that, maybe fighting, I mean, let's see. I mean, I think maybe taking a little bit of time off, letting the division settle a little bit. It was a very competitive fight. I mean, I don't think he took too much damage where he won't be able to fight again this year. But I think coming back this year is very, very important, and definitely fighting like a top 10 opponent. And then for Carlos, I mean, I think that cements him in the top 5 of the division. And I think fighting, like if Khalil Roundtree can win his next fight, I think that's a fight that makes sense and guaranteed fireworks. If Jiri doesn't get the next title shot, because they run it back with Ankalaev and Pereira, I think Jiri versus Carlos would be a very, very exciting fight as well. That guarantees firework. And I think Jiri, he just got an amazing finish in his last fight. So this might be the perfect matchup. Someone that just beat the former champion. Now you got these two guys, and it's almost like that fight could be a number one contenders fight, basically, where the winner becomes the number one contender to the light heavyweight championship. So definitely, to me, it was an upset. I was going for John, but shout out to Carlos for getting the job done. Congratulations on a great performance. So moving on, I mean, that's a wrap. That's a wrap for UFC London. I think that it was a great event. Few moments to discuss, few highs, few lows, but overall a very, very fun event that ended up with a great finish at the main event with Leon Edwards losing. So where do we go from here? Definitely, there's a lot of things on the horizon. Monday Night Raw is up next. Monday Night Raw is coming in this upcoming week is at 4 p.m. because it's going to be out in Europe. So make sure that if you tune in and you're looking to watch Monday Night Raw, make sure that you tune in at 4 p.m. By the time this episode is out, Raw should already be concluded. So I hope you didn't miss the episode. I know that right now they're on the road to WrestleMania, and there's a lot of exciting things happening in WWE. They recently announced Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk, a triple threat at WrestleMania. And I think that, I've never been a big fan of high-profile triple threats, but there have been some amazing triple threats in the history of the WWE. I think back to one of my favorites of all time was Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Chris Benoit when Chris Benoit became champion at WrestleMania 20. And I think that in a triple threat, it's very pivotal to make sure that every wrestler has their moments. So I'm very excited to see how these three are going to lock horns. They have built-in rivalries, which is going to make a fun match. And I'm very curious to see what night of WrestleMania is going to take place. It's going to be day 1 or day 2. Besides that, I'd be remiss if I don't talk about John Cena's promo. I think that John Cena heel turn has been managed excellently. I think it's exciting time for fans. I just really hope that he changes his outfit. I think back of Hollywood Hulk Hogan when he transitioned to Hollywood Hulk Hogan, he dropped the red and yellow and he came out with the black and white. So it's kind of hard for me as an older WWE fan to really embrace the heel John Cena when he's still wearing the same outfit, So I want to see something more trendy. Maybe come out with a black hoodie, give him a pipe, where's Travis Scott, make him a part of a faction. Like, don't just leave him heel by himself going against Cody Rhodes. And I get it. Maybe Travis Scott or The Rock can't be there in person, but then maybe have some sort of like a satellite interview or something where, I mean, make it happen. Make them come together. Don't leave heel John Cena alone with the same, with the same shirt that he was wearing the whole time, just different phrasing. I want to see him repackaged completely from the visuals, and I would love to see some sort of faction support where he's just not by himself. If Travis Scott and The Rock are not available, maybe they could do some sort of interview together. If that doesn't happen, then at least pair him with a manager or something. I just want to see the same John Cena just being a little meaner and being a bad guy, but still with the same look, right? So besides that, I think WWE is in a great place. Make sure you tune into Raw. And in terms of boxing, I think that to me there wasn't nothing really notable this past weekend. I'm definitely looking forward to the big fights coming up in May. And besides that, I think that's a wrap for this episode of the First Strike Podcast. This was mostly focused on reviewing and discussing Leon Edwards and UFC London, and a little bit of WWE. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. You have been so amazing. I read every comment, especially on Instagram and YouTube. So if you love the First Strike Podcast and you're having fun, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you like this video. I'll be doing weekly episodes every single week here in the First Strike Podcast. We strike first, we talk later. My name is Marathon Don, and I am out.